Now we know what hazard is capable of doing. We know they can pose threats to personnel, assets, reputation, and environment. So we are going to be talking about personal protective equipment. These are equipments used to protect us from hazards, either biological, physical, or chemical hazards. Personal protective equipment are equipment that protect users against health, safety, and environmental risk, or generally hazards of any form. For every part of the body, there is a specific personal protective equipment that can be used. Have you been at a construction site and you've seen engineers or workers wearing an helmet or safety boots? Or you've been to the beach and you've seen lifeguards with life jackets? Those are specific personal protective equipment. They are applicable to specific tasks only. Things to consider before making use of a personal protective equipment. First, you ask, what are the hazards in the job? What type of personal protective equipment is required? When is it required? And also, how necessary is it? You also need to ask or know how to use and maintain the personal protective equipment. Proper care, maintenance is also required. And lastly, storage and disposal of the equipment is also essential. Now let's move in to learning the several personal protective equipment and their applications. Here we have two nose masks or respiratory devices. They are worn to cover the nose and prevent foreign materials from entering the respiratory system, either dust particles or toxic substances such as poisonous gases. First is the respirator or filtering device. This is used when there is need to filter or remove contaminants present in the workplace air, like dust and harsh solid particles. Note, they should never be used for protection in situations with reduced oxygen levels or atmosphere with poisonous gases, because gas can penetrate through any surface. It has no weight and therefore it can penetrate through any hole. So when using a filtering device, you should only use in areas with contaminants present in the air, not areas with reduced oxygen levels. For areas with reduced oxygen levels, the personal protective equipment to be used is a respirator or oxygen device. This is used only when there is not enough oxygen in the atmosphere, like in a confined space or in an area with biohazard flames or radiative fumes. Take a look at this diver. He's walking into a cave, a dark cave. It's a confined space with reduced oxygen level. That's why he has to use an oxygen device as his personal protective equipment. Behind him is also attached two oxygen tanks which contain the oxygen he's going to be breathing in and out. Take note, if you wear the wrong respirator, the risk is greater. For the eyes, we have the safety spectacle or goggles. The safety spectacle is used to protect against flying objects from entering the eyes. Goggles are also used to protect against dangerous light, as we'll see welders do, or people who use high radiative lights, UV light or X-rays. They are required to use goggles to protect exposure against dangerous light. The face shield is also a personal protective equipment for the eye and also the face, as it covers from the head down to the chin. It is used in protecting the eye and face against flying objects, and it is further used in protecting chemical splashes and radiation. But this can't stop the passage of poisonous gases from entering the respiratory system. Helmet, a commonly used personal protective equipment, both for road users, bikers, and engineers at construction sites. The helmet is a type of personal protective equipment used generally in workplace environments to protect the head from injuries by falling objects. And there are two types of helmets, the hard hat and the bomb cap. Let's distinguish between the hard hat and the bomb cap. The hard hat, as the name tells, it has a hard surface which can survive or sustain impact with hard objects, bad weather and electric shock, compared to the bomb cap, which is a lightweight kind of hard hat with simplified suspension or padding. Inside the hard hat is a suspension that spreads the helmet weight over the top of the head. So when there's an impact or heavy blow to the head, it is not immediately felt on the head but on the surface of the helmet because of the suspension which separates the head from the top of the helmet. And that is why it is recommended for workers at construction sites. The bomb cap is used where there is a possibility of scraping or bumping one's head on equipment or structure projections. It is not strong enough to absorb large impacts like the hard hat. Let's take an example of workers at a construction site working on 5-story buildings. One of them is working at the 4th floor and the other person is at the ground floor. A machine drill is dropped from the 4th floor, landing on the person's head at the ground floor. If he's using a bomb cap, he can't survive that heavy impact compared to when he's wearing an hard hat. The hard hat can absorb large impacts than the bomb cap. So, as I said, that when wearing personal protective equipment, the things to consider are: what are the hazards in the job, where is it necessary and how necessary is it, and one thing to also consider is the limitations of the personal protective equipment. So the limitation of a bomb cap is it can't absorb large impacts. Take note, 88% of brain injuries can be prevented by wearing a properly fitted helmet. They absorb impact and minimize violent movement of the brain within the skull and distribute impact over a larger area. hence reducing the chance of a skull fracture or concussion. Helmets are used to protect against air entanglement for male and female workers and also prevent you from the risk of head bumping. Everyone is allowed to use an helmet, but color differentiates the task or responsibility given to each person. So, in a construction site again, all workers may be wearing an helmet, but with the colors of the helmet, we can differentiate or distinguish the post of each worker. The white helmet is used by engineers, managers, supervisors, and foremen, while the blue helmet is used for electricians, carpenters, and other technical operators. You may know or may not know before that red helmet is used by firefighters, just as we see them in movies and around us, even in pictures. Red helmet is meant for firefighters. The green helmet is meant for safety officers. As a site visitor, you are given a grey helmet, which differentiates you from every technical operator or engineer or safety officer at the construction site. So, as the safety officer wearing the green helmet, when you receive visitors at your site, the color of helmet given to them is the grey helmet. The yellow helmet is meant for laborers and earth-moving operators. And lastly, the brown helmet for welders and workers with high heat application. Take your time to master these colors of helmets and each person assigned to it. This will help you identify correctly each worker and their post at a construction site or industrial factory. Body PPEs. This may be overalls or personal protective equipment worn on the body, like a laboratory technician or someone working in a disease control facility. Engineers and construction workers also make use of body PPEs. The disposable body cover or workwear. This is used on special occasions in the lab, production factories, and special work sites. Like I mentioned, a disease control facility. It is used to protect against chemical splashes and to prevent viral infections. Next one is the traditionally used coverall or overall. It is basically used to protect against dirt, and at construction sites or industrial factories, it is used as a uniform and means of identification. Most times, these overall jackets are lined with reflective signaling materials to enable them to be identified in dark places or as proof that there's a worker in an area. And it is also used as proof against substances. The silver lining or reflective lining of the jacket can be heat-proof, waterproof, and fireproof, just as firefighters have their silver reflective jacket. The foot and leg personal protective equipment, we have the slip-resistant boots and also safety boots. Other types of foot and leg personal protective equipment are gaiters, leggings, and spats. They are used to protect against wet electrostatic buildup, slips and falls, cuts and punctures, falling objects, metal and chemical splash, and also abrasions. Gaiters are worn by road hikers or mountain climbers to prevent tripping or scratch by plants or metals or foreign objects in the environment. Leggings, which could be attached to a coverall or to a normal casual wear. The safety boots also. These two are designed to protect the lower parts of the wearer's legs and feet. So in addition to a leggings, you can also wear safety boots to be assured of safety on the lower part of your legs. Safety harness. Looking at these models, you are putting on a safety overall with reflective garments, and attached to them is a safety harness. What kind of hazard do you think is applicable to these models? If you thought of working at height, then you are correct. Safety harness is used when working at height, places higher or above the ground level, to prevent fall from the top or heavy falls. So, important things to take note of when thinking of personal protective equipment against hazards. The personal protective equipment should be considered how necessary or when it is necessary. Consider the hazard in the job and how to use and maintain the personal protective equipment. And in addition to that, the personal protective equipment should be properly assessed before use to make sure it is fit for purpose. It should be maintained and stored properly. Take for instance the safety harness. It is built with the strength of sustaining 2 people. So, a safety harness has the capability of sustaining 2 persons at height if well maintained. But if it's not maintained properly, the strength of the materials used to design the safety harness begins to break. So one day it's possible you are going for a task at height. Without properly assessing the safety harness, you assume that it's still strong. But because of lack of good housekeeping, a part of the safety harness has been cut. So when working at height, a sudden pull or push suddenly breaks the whole of the safety harness and down the person goes. He could suffer a brain fracture or skull fracture and at most death. The use of personal protective equipment is to stop hazards from occurring against personnel, assets, reputation, and environment. And also, education and enlightenment of how to use the personal protective equipment is paramount. Provide with instructions to your workers on how to use these PPEs safely and how to use it correctly. I hope this video has been informative on how to use personal protective equipment against hazards and to tell you the several personal protective equipment attached to each part of the body.